Hi, I'm Jack Chelman, and welcome to The Impact Report, a program from Next Gen Planners and the Global Returns Project. On the show, we focus on the intersection of financial planning and our planet. We cover sustainable investing, ESG, and more, and we have a particular interest in philanthropy. That's because charitable giving really matters for our planet, and because the research says it really matters to clients too. So welcome to episode 4. Today, we're honing in on the role of philanthropy within the spectrum of capital for clients. How can environmental philanthropy actually work for clients from a logistical point of view? And in order to start answering that question, I can't think of a better guest to have on. Our first guest is Lee Coates, who is director of ESG Accord. In 1989, Lee co-founded Ethical Investors, which is a financial planning business dedicated to advice on ethical, responsible, sustainable, and ESG investment. In 1998, he co-founded Ethical Screening, and in 2011, he was awarded an OBE for services to ethical business and finance. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jack. Great to be here.
Thanks so much. So Lee, to start us off, I wonder where you see charitable giving to climate or environmental organizations fitting into financial planning. What are the benefits to clients and to planners?
Well, I think it's part of that relationship building with clients. And so in order to sort of expand that advice process away from the purely transactional towards more engaged clients, especially for clients who have said, yes, please, I would like ESG or sustainability, then to talk about whether some of what the client may want to achieve can be achieved outside of the investment sphere. I think that's where advisors can actually deliver extra value. And also, I was going to say deflect. Deflect's not the right word. I think advisors can sort of move the conversation around impact to be less focused on, okay, what fund can deliver impact, and then trying to work out whether the client's attitude to risk fits an impact solution, and actually talk about, well, you can achieve impact without actually directly investing in things, and maybe we could build a portfolio that covers some sustainability issues, and your charitable giving could cover impact. So it's broadening that discussion.
Really interesting. I think that's so interesting to think about how it all builds in. I mean, I was struck, Lee, by a recent report from Charities Aid Foundation, CAF, which found that 2/3 of high net worth individuals say that charitable giving is an important part of my life, and a huge proportion of young millionaires, 18 to 34-year-olds, wanted help on charitable giving. And yet, on the other side of that issue, only 5% of advisors said they were very confident advising clients on philanthropy. I just thought that was an amazing gap. And I wonder if you were surprised by those statistics and why you think that gap exists.
Ooh, okay. Well, firstly, 18 to 34-year-old millionaires. Wow, okay. Interesting, that's the bit I focused on, but I'm retired, I think, now, so maybe I shouldn't. Am I surprised? No, not really. And I think probably the reason why is in that wording. Can you repeat back that last statement, Jack, about the 5%?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was 5% of advisors felt very confident advising clients on philanthropy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key, the advising clients on philanthropy, because the minute you're in your brain as an advisor, you're thinking about advising a client, you have to look at that within the compliance process. And instantly, philanthropy not being a financial services regulated product, alarm bells should be going off and thinking about, well, how can I give advice? You're not giving advice. You're having a conversation with the client. So maybe that survey from CAF potentially was looking at the right thing in the wrong way. In other words, if the question were more around how comfortable are you or would you be having a conversation about the client's giving, so making it a conversation about what the client is doing rather than how confident are you advising on charity. Because the minute that happens and you think about due diligence, which charity am I recommending? And I think all of that really should take a step back, engage the client, talk to the client about what they might want and whether philanthropy is the solution to deliver the impact the client might be looking for. So broad conversation, nothing about product, nothing about advice, just conversation.
That's a really important distinction. Obviously, it's sort of having the conversation. And I mean, you've touched on compliance there, Lee. And Lee, when it comes to philanthropy and specifically climate philanthropy, what are the compliance implications for an advisor for incorporating climate philanthropy into an offering to clients?
Well, essentially, the advisor should approach it in a I would say non-compliant way. It's not a compliance issue unless the advisor makes it an issue. It's a conversation. It's a relatively safe environment to have a conversation about a non-financial services related product. In the same way as advisors talk about goals and aspirations. So you can have those broader, what do you want to achieve? Why are you trying to achieve it? That they're not sort of interrogation questions. They're getting to know you questions. And philanthropy fits directly into that. I mean, an advisor could theoretically misword something in a recommendation letter, by sort of using the same language as based on your attitude to risk, etc. I recommend. That's not what the client's actually asking for. What they want is a conversation around should they and how much can they afford, and the advisor is the exactly correct person to have that conversation with. How much can I afford? Well, we can strip an income. For example, if it's on a platform, make life easy. We can tailor some of the investments, take some of the income out. You don't have to worry about it, and that can be paid off to a charity of your choice. Is making it about the client's choice rather than thinking the client is sitting there saying, you're the advisor, you discuss philanthropy. It's not. It's a conversation. It's not an advice thing, and therefore keeping it in that environment doesn't create a compliance problem.
Such an important distinction. And I guess if an advisor had specific ideas about where to direct clients regarding philanthropy, the key distinction is really just making sure it's not a recommendation, it's an introduction. Is that right, Lee?
Yeah. I mean, if the client sits there and says, well, I want to achieve impact. We've been talking about impact. And then the advisor saying, well, based on the funds that are out there at the moment, I'm not sure they meet your attitude to risk. Maybe you could look at philanthropy. So rather than it being an investment in impact, you could look at it as achieving impact via philanthropy. And then the advisor can say there are a number of ways of achieving it. Maybe you've got some charities in mind that you already support and just think of that as impact. Or I'm aware of a number of organizations, and then that's a point for the advisor to say, clearly it's not advice, it's a personal choice. But have you heard of the Global Returns Project? It's just an introduction of the client to a concept. And of course, if the client hasn't heard of Global Returns Project, naughty client, then there's an opportunity to have a discussion. All of it based around, it's not a recommendation, it's not a suggestion. There are lots of things available. You see, everybody's used to the adverts now, which is other options are available. As soon as someone says something, other options are available. But I'm not the person that's going to research it. You either decide you want to do it as a client. I can have a conversation with you when you've chosen your charity. Then I can set up the payment. We can draw down capital. We can draw down income. I can make life easy for you and automate the process for you to give. Or the client will say, tell me more about the Global Returns Project. And there's obviously a direct parallel to the conversation the advisor has been having. Oh, okay. So we put you on a platform and we're building a portfolio of projects, funds to meet your aims. Global Returns Project is a charitable organization, but it's achieving the same thing in the charity space. So you give to one thing, they report back to you, and so the conversation goes from there. And then ultimately there's a client to say, yes, actually that ticks all the boxes. And then the advisor says, here's a link to the website. Bear in mind, it's not a recommendation, but have a look at that. If it works for you, that's great. I'm here to facilitate the payment, a transfer of money from you to a charitable organization. If that one works for you, let me know and I'll set it up. If you want to have another conversation about charitable giving and amounts and that sort of thing, but it's the advisor needs to make sure they're not getting tied up in a conversation. Do you think this charity is better than that charity? That's not financial advice. The advisor is there to facilitate. But if the client's sitting there going, great idea, what do I do now? At least having something to say, well, here's something that might make you think about the options. And normally in that situation, a good package solution will meet most clients' needs.
Fantastic. And Lee, I know the FCA's new sustainable disclosure requirements have prompted a lot of interesting discussions. You were just talking about impact. Well, they prompted a lot of discussions about what impact really means, especially when it comes to asset allocation. I wonder how you think charitable giving fits into that discussion of actual impact, that matters.
Well, there is a direct correlation. I mean, if you look at the 4 labels, improvers, focus, impact, and mixed goals, essentially mixed goals is a managed version of any of the previous 3. And often in speaking to clients, there's that idea of, well, I'd like to do something, but is my something going to achieve anything? Now, if a client if what the client's intention is to focus their money on investing in companies that are delivering solutions, maybe the focus label is suitable. But if a client is saying, well, how do I know what has been achieved? Then you're talking about impact. Then you come around to, are there any impact solutions that meet the client's attitude to risk, capacity for loss, etc.? The broader financial planning things. And like I said before, it may be that having that conversation with a client about, impact is, as an investment theme, is still in its relative infancy. But if you want measurable impacts, and we're having a conversation about philanthropy, that can be achieved via a single route, which is achieve measurable impact via your philanthropy, and then focus your investment strategy on the themes that you want to support. So it could be a blending of options. You want to achieve impact, you want to give money away, we can do both there. You could have some impact, direct investments, if it meets client's attitude to risk, capacity for loss, and the philanthropy. So it's multifaceted. Or you could have a client that says, that's interesting, sustainability, I'm not sure I want to invest in that, but I'd like to feel I'm doing something. Well, why not do it via giving them? So you could invest in conventional funds, maybe with an ESG risk underpin, without actually picking a sustainable investment strategy. And then a client can think, well, I'm actually doing something via my philanthropy. I'm trying to make things better, and I'm going to get a report back to tell me what's been made better and in what way. And that can balance off perhaps a nervous toe in the water approach. I'll put a little bit of money in a sustainable investment fund, but I will make sure my philanthropy is focused on delivering climate-based impact.
Absolutely. And last question for you, Lou. I know you're involved in many interesting things. Where can advisors learn more about philanthropy, but also regulation, how to be better advisors, get all the resources they need, and more?
Well, funny you should say that. But we launched last year a website called the Accord Initiative. So it's www.accordinitiative.com. And that has everything an advisor wanted to know, but perhaps were afraid to ask about, all things relating to ESG, sustainability, ethical investment, and how everything interacts with the regulatory environment. And we've got a whole section on philanthropy and the compliance aspects of philanthropy, so advisors can have a free to access toolkit about how to embed sustainability into their advice process for the clients that want it. But it's a requirement of consumer duty to ask every client whether they do want it. And then there's a natural flow as part of the tools. We actually have an allocation to philanthropy as part of the client questionnaire. So a very simple form. Do you understand what you're looking for? Would you like to introduce sustainability? If yes, in what way? And what proportion, if any, of income/capital do you want to allocate to philanthropy? So it's a very sort of compliant, process-driven thing, all available free on the Accord Initiative website.
Fantastic. Fantastic. There are such good resources out there. Thank you very much, Lee, for your time and for delving into these issues and clarifying them for us.
Thanks very much for having me, Jack. It's been good. Great.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Lee. Our next guest is Scott Sinclair, who is Director of Marketing at the investment platform Fundment. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
It's great to have you. Yes, thank you very much. So we've just talked about some of the compliance implications of climate philanthropy. Now I'm kind of interested in digging into some of the practical logistics for advisors. So platform software is obviously an important tool that a lot of advisors and planners use to work with their clients. And Scott, I guess first question is I'm wondering, I know Fundment has made it even easier to act on a client's instructions around charitable giving. I wonder if you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think probably first it might be helpful to your listeners to just briefly explain a little bit, certainly for those who are unaware, just briefly sort of where an investment platform or an advisor platform like ours sits in all of this. So I think I don't like the word facilitate, so maybe simplify. I think we certainly try to simplify the relationship between a financial advisor and their client. So when an advisor has agreed a financial plan with their client, in most cases, that plan will be executed or will be carried out on a platform like ours. From the advisor's perspective, I think it's possible to think of us as a bit like an online marketplace and an online bank sort of rolled into one. And so it's a platform like ours that enables an advisor to set up and manage and monitor their clients' investments, whether that's an ISA or a junior ISA, a pension, an investment account, all in one place. So I think that kind of explains what an advisor platform is. Maybe to think about it a bit more practically, you can imagine a client that is currently on our platform that wishes to withdraw some money from, let's say, their pension. So what an advisor would do is they would log into our platform, being a user in the first place. They would visit that client on the platform. They would click on their pension, type in an amount to withdraw, select that client's bank account or the bank account they would prefer that money to be sent to, and off the money goes. So that's sort of a practical example of how it works. Maybe it's a little bit more complicated than that, but certainly not much, I'm happy to say. So to bring my answer back around to your question, Jack, which is how have we made it easier? Essentially, advisors that use the Fundment platform can now enact or enable a charitable donation to the Global Returns Project on our platform. So it's now possible to do it on Fundment. So if there's a client that wishes to withdraw some money from their investment account, for example, and wishes to make a charitable donation, and previously they could only do one of those things on our platform, and now they can do both. So yeah, in that sense, we've simplified that a little bit for the advisor and the client.
Fantastic. And it's, worth saying that's the first time in the industry that's been done. So it's a really interesting integration. And as you said, Scott, it's relating to climate and biodiversity charities at the moment via the Global Returns Project, but it has implications for all sorts of philanthropic offerings via financial advice. So really interesting. I wonder, Scott, a lot of our viewers are actually going to be Fundment users already, right? So we're speaking with financial planners. How does a Fundment user right now start using this tool? They see this and say, well, that's great. I'd love to try it out. What do they practically do?
So I think it's really straightforward, considering where we are, I think, on this, which is fairly new to this. We are breaking new ground, I think, in the advisor platform world by offering this. It's really straightforward. So here's how it works. So so first of all, we need a client that is on the Fundment platform in the first place, having been placed there by their advisor. So once that client has expressed a wish to their advisor to make a charitable donation to in this example, to the Global Returns Project, their advisor will contact us. We will send a very simple form to complete. And then when we get that back, we can set up the Global Return Project's bank account effectively as an option for that client on the platform. So the client then, via their advisor, when they wish to make a charitable donation here, in this case, whether that's £50 a month recurring or a one-off £1,000 a year, potentially, then it's very easy to do, because now in the drop-down of withdrawal destinations, the Global Returns Project will be there and visible to see. But I think you can see as well that it's quite a client-specific system at the moment. But then again, as I mentioned, this is brand new. This is really new to the advisor platform world. So I think as client awareness and appetite grows, so will the sophistication of what we can offer. It's probably not too far-fetched to imagine a scenario in the not too distant future whereby the Global Returns Project, again, as an example in this case, is added as an option for all clients on the Fundment platform to select at withdrawal stage. And then, so it would be really that easy. So whenever a withdrawal is made, the Global Returns Project is available to select. And then from that point, the client can approve that particular withdrawal or make their declaration, as we call it, digitally via DocuSign, for example. But as you mentioned a moment ago, Jack, this is breaking new ground in the advisor platform space. We are the first to offer it, but I suspect we won't be the only ones for long.
Well, that's a great segue, Scott, because my last question was going to be, if someone's watching now and they're not a user of Fundment yet, what should they do? What should they ask their current platform? What's the next step in terms of trying to integrate something philanthropic into the platform software?
Yeah, I mean, my answer to that is yes, they should. Funnily enough, Jack, that isn't a million miles away from how we picked this up in the first place. So an advisor, it was a financial advisor that brought the Global Returns Project, your fantastic organization, to our attention. And that was because a client had asked that particular advisor if they could make a donation. And so the advisor came to us and effectively said, what can you do to help? I think, you'll remember that I said a few moments ago that we tried to be there to simplify that relationship between the advisor and the client. And I think that particular instance fell squarely into that camp. So a client asked an advisor if something was possible. At that time, it wasn't possible. So that advisor thought that we were best placed to make it a reality potentially. And we're really pleased that the advisor asked us, because we were able to do it. And I think it's fair to assume, Jack, that that particular client and advisor won't be the only ones that wish to make philanthropic donations to the Global Returns Project and others in this way, in this very sort of easy way. But right now, yes, it is only available on Fundment. You'd have to be a client that's on the Fundment platform. We're not the only platform in the market. There's more than 20 of us, in fact. For other clients of advisors that use other platforms, yes, they would need to go to the Global Returns Project directly. And I know, Jack, the organization doesn't make it a headache to donate, but taking it back to that example, the advisor in this case thought, why not solve a problem at the same time, which is to make this as easy as possible for the client. And we're really pleased that we're able to do that. To any clients out there that sort of wish to make this a reality or more commonplace, I would say speak to your financial advisor, ask them which are their preferred platforms. And if Fundament is among them, then great, we can do that. If Fundament isn't among them, then I think it is reasonable to say to your advisor, to ask the platforms out there, can you please make this a reality? So I think it's fair and reasonable to ask them to do that.
Fantastic. Well, it's amazing to think what some simple questions from viewers of this program can do for the platform space. So really cool. Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Lee, and thank you for joining us as a viewer. We'll hope you join us at the next episode, which will focus on philanthropy in financial planning more broadly. So what is the demand for philanthropy advice among clients, and why haven't advisors felt as confident offering philanthropy until now? Finally, this program, as always, is co-hosted by the Global Returns Project, which is a UK charity helping financial advisors offer high-impact climate philanthropy to their clients, often as a complement to sustainable investing. If you'd like to learn more about how to do this and work with GRP at no cost to you or your clients, please do get in touch. My email is jack@globalreturnsproject.org. Thank you.